The good
Now,
news is that the good news those Raiders, they're not expensive and they're not unique items. We can mass produce them rapidly because they're not some of the most complicated technology available in the United States. I'm lying. They're some of the most complicated technology available in the United States. We can't produce them rapidly. And when you lose a THAAD system, you lose a THAAD system. It's not as though we go, hey, ring me up another one, buddy. Nope, they ain't on the shelf. If you don't have one,
they're not talking about it either. That's for sure. There's no comments coming from Trump or anyone else, Pete Hegseth, about that. But this is his direct response today as we were speaking to the Washington Post piece about him and Pete Hegseth clashing heads at Camp David recently about these munition shortages. He said, the fake news, as usual, is spreading false and completely unfounded rumors. I'm extremely happy with the job Pete Hegseth is doing. Everything has been extraordinary, including our attack on Venezuela, where the result was accomplished in less than one day, allowing us to bring the worst criminals anywhere in the world, Nicolas Maduro, to justice. Likewise, Iran, where the country has been decimated for the purpose of not allowing it to have a nuclear weapon, is going very well. Pete is highly respected within the military and has made tremendous improvements, including getting rid of DEI and increasing recruitment to historic levels. The rumor was started by the Washington Compost, one of the media outlets in the business, worst media outlets in the business, despite our telling their story is completely false. In actuality, I believe their fake reporting is treasonous. So there seems to be a big pattern, Scott. Bad reports come out in the media and Trump reacts almost exactly like this. It's treasonous, put the reporters in jail. Everything is going well. What do you make of it?
Well, let's just remind people for a second of this thing called the Constitution. And the Constitution, guarantees freedom of speech and a free press. In 1972, I think it was, New York Times versus the United States, the Pentagon Papers case. When I can't remember. I just had his name on the tip of my tongue. The guy who did the Pentagon Papers, Ellsberg, Daniel Ellsberg, a friend of mine, by the way. I mean, up until the time he passed away, and we were in communication up until the day of. I mean, communicating via his family. So sorry, Dan. Forgive me. I didn't forget about you. I'm talking about you right now. But that case, people should go and read the opinion written by the Supreme Court Justice, why we need a free press. And one of the key things about it was that the government can't hide behind a wall of secrets. It can't hide, failures. It can't hide lies. That's the important one. They can't hide lies. That it's a duty of a free press to uncover these lies, and the government can't, hide the lies through secrecy. That especially in the specifics of the language I might be getting off, but especially when we're talking about sending American boys overseas to die in foreign lands. Well, hell, that's exactly what's going on right now. American boys and girls are going off to die in foreign lands. And the justification for this is based on lies, straight up lies. And so now the press is doing its constitutional duty. I mean, this is why we have a free press. And the Supreme Court has put down in writing the importance of exposing the lies and breaking through the wall of secrecy. So the president is smoking dope. Richard Nixon tried to do this. It didn't work. And every president since then tried to do this thing, shut down a free press. Look, I'm a former intelligence officer. I know more than anybody the danger of, irresponsible leaking of information. So I would not support it. Give you an example. Back in the 1990s, the CIA had found out that Osama bin Laden was using a specific kind of satellite phone to communicate. This is pre 9/11. We were trying to kill him because we understood the risk that he and Al Qaeda posed. And so I forget the company, Morton Thiokol. They're based out of the LA, San Diego area, but they built a satellite that was specifically geared to intercepting that satellite phone. And it cost over $1 billion to build this thing. And we launched it. And Aviation Week and space technology published an article that said that on board was a classified package believed to be capable of intercepting the communications of Osama bin Laden. That satellite went silent. I mean, the phone went silent. So we had a satellite in space that wasn't collecting anything because it was specifically geared to get that so we could take that guy out. That was harmful to the national security of the United States of America. I'm not in support of leaks of that nature. Those people who gave that up, free press doesn't protect you. That is a criminal action. But if you're Daniel Ellsberg and you're sitting on the Pentagon Papers, which proves that everything the United States said about Vietnam was a lie, and that people are out there talking about Vietnam, saying things are untrue to justify continued expenditures, continued deployments, continued death, loss of life. He had he was 100% correct morally, ethically, legally, to see that this information got published. Now, he could have paid a high price. I mean, there are consequences to your actions. But the press can't be silenced. And see, the president isn't talking about just bringing the leakers to justice. Look, we have a whistleblower system that's been abused, doesn't work, but it's there. And if you're somebody who has information you believe needs to go to the press or needs to be made public, needs to be aware to Congress, you need to go through the whistleblower process. Now, if you go through the process and you get stymied, then you have no choice but to go to the press, and then you have to be willing to pay the price. Ellsberg was willing to pay the price, but because the government broke into his psychiatrist's office and stole medical information about the counseling sessions, the judge just said, "Screw it, we're not going down this route." The whole thing's dismissed. But the president can't sit there and call the press treasonous. They're not treasonous. They could be irresponsible, but they're not treasonous. And especially when they're uncovering lies they're being told about a war where American service members are losing their lives.
Yeah, and the fact that the mainstream media can be wrong. I mean, it often is wrong. It could be completely making all of this up. But the way that Donald Trump himself and his handlers, I'm guessing he's not writing this all himself, from what I've heard, but the response is not convincing. It comes off as not only defensive, but also it reeks of almost boy who cried wolf. Like your reaction is showing that actually it could be the truth. It's almost like when CENTCOM has, throughout this whole war, every time Iran comes out with a report about what they did in retaliation to U.S. strikes, CENTCOM would come out as fact check. No, they didn't do that. But you do that enough without providing actual evidence that they didn't do that, people are going to start to think, well, maybe they actually did do that. And that's the thing with Trump too, and Truth Social. It's like, people are going to start to think that you saying the media is lying. People are going to look into it more and say, well, maybe they're telling the truth, because what you're saying isn't convincing at all. It just comes off as temper tantrums almost. Your thoughts?
Look, Donald Trump has repeatedly, we destroyed their entire Air Force. Then why did two F-5s penetrate the air defenses and bomb Kuwait, killing Americans? What about that Air Force? We destroyed their Navy. Then why are their ships laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz, blocking it down? And the Navy isn't just ships on the sea. The Iranian Navy has a whole bunch of anti-ship missiles that have shut down the Strait of Hormuz. We destroyed their army, except we didn't even come close to destroying their army. And if they ever put 1 million guys on the border with Iraq, like they did during the Iran-Iraq war, they could come punching through and take Kuwait in a matter of days. And what do we do with the 5,000 to 8,000 American troops that are still there who can't fight because they're not the combat troops? If they were, they can't fight. I mean, CENTCOM's lied the entire time. The president's lied the entire time. We haven't told the truth about anything, because to tell the truth would to acknowledge that we were woefully ill prepared for this. I mean, from top to bottom. Someday, somebody's going to write the definitive history of American targeting practices during this conflict. There's a program called Maven. Palantir and company came up with it. It was, NATO made extensive use of it in coming up with its war plan against Kaliningrad and striking Russia. It's artificial intelligence supported targeting. Well, we used Maven to develop our expanded target list in Iran, and we ended up blowing up empty buildings. We ended up murdering 168 children. We ended up, hitting, volleyball games in progress. We ended up, just committing war crime after war crime after war crime because nothing we did worked. Nothing we did worked. We didn't. When it comes down to it, the president brags about doing this and the other thing. Why is Iran producing more missiles today than they were before the war if we destroyed their missile production capacity? Why? Why is Iran doing anything today if we destroyed everything? We killed everybody. There's no leadership, but there is leadership. They have a functioning leadership. They have a functioning government. We're going to find out that we knew nothing about Iran, which begs the question, why didn't we know anything about Iran? Where was the CIA? Where was the, where's the special intelligence that comes in, the man next to the supreme leader who we've been recruiting for 20 years, who's slipping us all the papers so we know everything the supreme leader is doing. Normally, it's just the kind of intelligence you want to have if you're going to go to war. And normally we'd have, hell, when we were preparing to go to war against the Soviet Union back in the 1980s, we had a corps of foreign area officers, Soviet specialists, guys who, would take 3 to 4 years to get trained up, get advanced degrees in Russian area studies, advanced language program, cultural immersion at a Russian city that was built in Garmisch, Germany, and then deployed to various utility tours. Some included the embassy in Russia, in Moscow. Others were at the Potsdam mission, carrying out sort of James Bond type espionage against the Soviet group of forces and other places. But we knew the enemy. We had people who actually knew the Russians and could talk about it intelligently. I worked with these guys. They were really, really good. Where's our Iran hands? No, we've populated the Iran hands with nothing but a bunch of former, Shah types, people loyal to the son of the Shah who's in exile, people who are, contaminated with the Mujahideen al-Khalq. What we need are people who understand the Islamic Republic. What we need are people who understand the Shia faith. We need people who be able to tell the president, you don't want to assassinate the supreme leader in a land where, martyrdom is sort of the highest honor. Mr. President, let me tell you the story of Ali Hassan Hussein. Let's talk about the Battle of Karbala. Let's talk about what that means with the people. Because, when we in America talk about, Bunker Hill, or we talk about Lexington and Concord, or we talk about Gettysburg, or we talk about, any one of these defining moments, Americans are like, yes, I identify with that. That's what makes me who I am. Well, Karbala is what makes the Shia what they are, and to be dismissive of it and the concepts of martyrdom that are attached to that is just stupid in the extreme. Who advised this president? Well, the Israelis did. Who told the president the Israelis are smoking dope? Where was the Iran specialist to stand up and say, that ain't what's happening, Mr. President? That's not right. Let me tell you what's going on. They were long ago dismissed. If you ever dared stand up and say something about Iran that was realistic, you were, accused of, going native. Ritter went native. Got to get rid of Ritter. We got to get somebody who doesn't know a damn thing about Iran. That way we know he hasn't gone native. But, Ritter's up there talking about Iran. He's gone native. I mean, they accused me of going native in Iraq. Well, shame on them, because I'm the only one who got it right. Why? Because I didn't go native. I was just damn good at what I did. We need people who are damn good at what they do with Iran to advise the president, in a wise and judicious manner about the reality of Iran. The key thing about an advisor who's talking about these things, it's not about, supporting policy. The policy is made by policymakers. It's about being able to set the stage accurately so that policy can be, to make sure that the policy, is capable of impacting a realistic scenario. We went into Iran ignorant about the reality of Iran. We don't know anything about it, and we're shocked. The president says, "I'm shocked. I'm shocked that they could withstand this." Why, Mr. President? They're a constitutional republic. They've been a constitutional republic for 47 years. These institutions of government are hardened. They're there. You can't just kill one person and make the institution go away. And these are institutions that the Iranian people respect. Don't listen to the Iranian expats in Los Angeles. That's the wrong crowd to listen to. You actually need to have people going into it. Oh, that's right. You stopped students from going to Iran a long time ago. You stopped business from going to Iran. You don't have anybody that goes to Iran. Do you have an embassy in Iran where our defense attaché? You close that down too. So basically you close down every vector of gathering information that could be used to create a team of Iran experts, subject matter experts who could advise you accurately. Instead, you just get the anti-Khomeini, the anti-Ayatollah, the anti-Shia crowd, heavily influenced by the Saudis. Don't go to the Saudis to learn about Iran. Don't do it, because the Saudis are a bunch of Wahhabist extremists who hate everything about the Shia faith, hate everything about the Iranians culturally, and they'll tell you any lie you want to hear. Don't go to the United Arab Emirates. They'll tell you the same lies. Don't go to the Gulf Arabs, period. Go to Iran, go to the source. But we didn't do that, and here's the result.
Yeah, you have to be willing to do that as well. But in the last 15 minutes we have got, I wanted to talk to you about Ukraine. The latest reports are from BBC that Russia strikes, between the 4th and 5th kill 21 people. That's Ukrainian reports. And Ukraine is saying it needs more missile interceptors, which seems to be the theme. Now, in these strikes, Russia did fire off about 24 Iskander missiles, half a dozen Zircons. So they were showing off those missiles, and none of them were intercepted. So that's showing exactly where Ukraine is. But again, the reports still are, Scott, that Ukraine is bringing the war back to Russia. The BBC, I can pull it up in a second, is reporting at the same time that Ukraine has been successfully bringing the war to Russia. So give us your Ukraine update as where things are right now.
Well, it's the same place it's been for some time now. This Ukrainian offensive, that just ended on August 4th, 2 days ago, began on June 25th when President Zelensky declared that he was initiating a 40-day drone-based influence campaign. Now, who is he trying to influence? The Russian people. The purpose of this drone-based campaign was to bring the war home to Russia, bring the reality of this conflict to the Russian people. He had softened the Russians up, starting in April. In May, there was extensive drone attacks. I was there in June. There were drones flying everywhere. And of course, on June 25th, he announces this campaign. What he said is that what the purpose of what Ukraine was doing prior to June 25th was to make the Russians believe that Moscow and St. Petersburg were at risk. And the goal was to get Russia to divert air defense systems away from the rest of Russia to defend these high priority targets in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And then Zelensky believed that he had successfully done this. So now his drones could go out and they could strike into the depth of Russia. They could strike, places that had never been stricken before and just bring the pain to the Russian people. Look, the Russians are good, but they're not, infallible. First of all, systems can go down. You can have 100 radars out there with interlocking sectors of coverage. What's the radar failure rate? I don't know, let's say 16%. So that's 16 radars that go down at any given time. The average recovery period is, 6 to 24 hours, depending on what's wrong with the radar. Normally speaking, you wouldn't know. I mean, if I've mapped it out, if I fly my drone and it's collecting the electronic warfare, I've got the things positioned, and then the Russians, of course, moving around every now and then just to change things up. But if I'm doing it constantly, if I have my satellites on board, I'll know when those 16 go down. And because I have signals intelligence, and the Russians may have made a mistake in broadcasting to clear or use a mode of encryption that we can cover, we'll know how long they're going to be down. So suddenly, our intelligence picture can pick the gaps in the radar. And then we also look at the mobile groups. The Russians have mobile groups going on, and we can track where they are in near real time. And so what will happen is we will sit there and get this intelligence picture, and then we shoot it down to the people advising the Ukrainians who are right there with the drone operators, and they will sit there and program in a flight path that will take them in, shoot the gap. And what you do is you flood that zone. You got 550 drones, flood it in, because what you're also doing is you're seeking to exhaust that sector. Because the Russians don't know in advance where you're coming. So you flood this zone, you exhaust this sector. Basically, they're going to run through, their Pantsir missiles, and they're going to run through, their surface to air missiles. They're going to cycle through that, and the last package is going to get through. And then it will come in, and some will get shot down by the mobile groups that are recovering. But there's going to be a handful of these missiles that get through, and they're going to strike the target they're aiming at. Generally speaking, these are, oil refineries. And so you get a pop, and you get some flame, and you get a lot of black smoke. When you burn oil, man, a lot of black smoke. And then the Ukrainians have their agents who are out driving around waiting for the attack, and they take their video and they download it. You see it on Telegram. Video provided by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. Well, how the hell did they get that video? Ask the FSB, because I think the people taking the video don't last too long after that. They get rounded up and go away. But the whole idea is to get that imagery out there to create the notion that the pain is coming to Russia. Then on July 18th, I believe, there was a political crisis in Ukraine. Fedorov, the Minister of Defense, got canned. They brought in a new guy who was the commander of Group Alpha, the same people that from the security service of Ukraine that did the Operation Spiderweb, the trucks with the drones that went out and hit the aircraft. And he decided that it would be a good idea for Ukraine now to strike, to expand the strike. You got to bring the pain to the people. Wildberries. Wildberries is an online retailer. They've got warehouses out there. Small Russian businesses will send their goods to Wildberries, who will then distribute it, for a fee. That's how they make money. Everybody's happy because it reduces overhead for the companies. It helps with distribution. It's all wonderful. It's a very effective system. And they started hitting these places. They're not well defended, and they're not designed to take a missile through the roof. I'm sure they have a fire suppression system that happens if some guy throws a cigarette into the trash bin and catches on fire. The heat sensor picks it up, fire suppression, and you lose that little sector of stuff, water damage. But that's okay. But now someone comes in, boom, now you got a fire, it rages, big flame, black smoke, people taking photographs, videos, and you start getting this whole thing about how this is painful for Russia. My God, it's embarrassing. It's humiliating for the Russians. Vladimir Putin's got to count his days. Gilbert Doctorow is going to tell us just how bad it is. My God, fire the entire general staff, incompetence, bad, boom. Oh, Jesus Christ. And then they come in with more drones and they go into the Sea of Azov, and you have this Magyar dude sitting there, publishing videos of Ukrainian drones hitting ships in the Sea of Azov every night. 8 more ships, 12 more ships. Well, not that many, but they hit some. And then they go to the Caspian Sea and they start interdicting Russian shipping in the Caspian Sea. And they're bragging, we own the Black Sea. We kicked the Russians out. Now we own the Sea of Azov. We own Kerch. We own the sea. We are destroying Russia. It's over. It's all over. And the Russian people are supposed to be, oh my God, we hate Putin. We hate United Russia. We're going to vote against United Russia in September 20th in the Duma election, and Putin's going to collapse, and there'll be a Russian Maidan, and oh my, that's great. And over and over and over and over and over again, you hear this stuff. It's all a pack of bullshit. Yes, there are things happening. Yes, Russia's being hit. The other thing the Ukrainians are famous for doing is picking out a refinery. Pop in the refinery, knowing, for instance, it's run by Rosneft. And they know that now that's going to shut down for a period of time. And that's going to disrupt because the refinery is producing refined products for primarily local consumption, regional consumption. So if you take out a refinery, regional consumption is going to be impacted. And then what happens? Gas stations don't get their delivery. And people who go to that gas station go, there's no fuel, and there's a line. And the Ukrainian asset comes by and films it. And then it gets published. Look at the long line outside of Samara. The Russian people hate Putin because they found the one drunk Russian woman who's going to pick a fight with the one drunk Russian man. And they can say that's all of Russia because they're fighting. Hell, I can get a line anywhere in America now, and I can find 2 Americans that are willing to duke it out. Does it mean all of America is collapsing? No. But it gets echoed around in the social media chamber, and everybody goes, the Russians are falling apart. What they don't see is that Russia has gigantic strategic gasoline reserves. And the Russian government goes, Samara's short. Hey, Lukoil, those reserves you got over the excess capacity you have, divert it over here to Rosneft. Rosneft, get it over to the people who need it. And 3 days later, the line's gone. But no one's talking about that. Somebody just drove from Ekaterinburg to Sochi, I believe, over 2,000 kilometers of road. They said along the entire way, no lines, for gas, no rationing. One place, one gas station limited you to 30 liters of gasoline because, my God, Russia isn't perfect. They didn't have enough gas to go around to every gas station instantaneously. They're still working on redistributing their gas reserves. So you can only sell 30 liters until the gas supply comes in. Then that goes away. This is the reality of Russia. Now, the closer you get to the front line, the more difficult it gets. Crimea, difficult situation. Kherson, difficult situation. But not end of world, like Gilbert Doctorow tries to say. It's it. The Russians have lost because my 80-year-old friend has two bad legs and he's standing on a hill in Feodosia and he can't get a taxi driver to take him down to the train station. All right, Gil. Keep drinking your supply. But it's insanity. The Russians aren't panicked. Wild berries. Well, what Russia's just done now is declared total war against Ukraine's supply. So yes, a handful of wild berry places are hit. Wild berries is, defending some, moving some, setting some places up in Kazakhstan to get out of the strike range. But the bottom line is, they're saying $1.3 billion worth of economic harm, but the head of wild berries came out and said it's in tens of millions. It's significant, but it's not the end of the world. Meanwhile, Russia's destroying everything. And in Kiev now, everybody, they got a guy, I forget the name of the company, but he came to Zelensky, stop it. I just built this company. It's so great and it's wonderful. And now the Russians are blowing it all up. Shouldn't have bombed wild berries. You bomb wild berries, you lose everything. And they're losing everything. And Russia, it's total war now against the Ukrainian, civilian distribution network. It's over. The post system of Ukraine is gone. Gas stations are gone. Everything's gone. And it's just going to keep going until everything's destroyed. It's now total war. The Russians have shut down the Black Sea. You went after Azov and Caspian. Guess what? Azov and Caspian Sea is still controlled by the Russians. But the Black Sea, Ukraine ain't getting a ship in and out of their ports. My dogs agree. Shut down the Black Sea. And that means that it's the end of the Ukrainian economy. 60% of the Ukrainian economy came in and out of the Black Sea ports. It's gone, finished. Ukraine is dying. This is the reality. Ukraine is dying. They're dead. Nothing is going to happen. Nothing's going to grow. Nothing's going to get built. Harvest is in the field right now. Who's harvesting it right now? They don't have any diesel. Everybody's like, oh, the Russians had to stop the exportation of diesel. Well, they did that last year and the year before too. It's just a reality of war. But it doesn't mean they ran out of diesel. The Russians are smart enough to say we have to conserve enough diesel to make sure that our crops can be brought in and that goods can be transported. There might be a temporary shortage for commercial users, non-critical commercial users, but that never happened. The diesel's there. The price of gas, there's a grade of gas, AI 95, I think it is. It's the most popular grade of gas for the Russian drivers. The cost of AI 95 per liter today is cheaper than it was this time last year. So much for that damn crisis. This is all a giant lie. Ukraine is collapsing. There is no air defense and there will be no air defense. They have no air defense and they can't build an air defense. They have this system they're calling Freya, the Norse goddess of something, love, attraction, beauty. That's why they paint their R&D missiles pink, I guess. But, they're like, Freya's going to solve everything. You were just in Paris. You talked with 12 European defense companies, and some of them you are still continuing to have a discussion about shared R&D. Now, if you're in the discussion of shared R&D, it means you haven't even decided what the original missile is going to look like, and you're years away from potential production. There will be no Freya missile. There will be no missiles. And without air defense, Ukraine dies, and that's where we're at right now. We're watching the agonizing death of Ukraine. The intel we're providing to Ukraine isn't the really, really good stuff. A lot of this is imagery based because you need to know where you are when you launch a weapon. You need to know where the weapon's going. So there's GPS factored into this thing. So there's a contract they signed with a commercial provider. The name begins with an M, Maxar, something of that nature. Maxar might be it. And so Maxar then is a contractor, the Department of Defense, that provides this imagery that's then used to provide targeting packages. We don't call them targeting packages, though we call them points of interest because we're not allowed to use the targeting word when we deal with Ukraine, to the Ukrainians. And so, yes, there's intelligence that is provided. When we shut off the intelligence last time, this imagery and all that, the Ukrainians came up with their own mechanism of gathering the information necessary to do targeting on this. And as you see, the Ukrainians have been hitting targets in the depth of Russia. They don't need this. So this is just a gesture. People need to understand that Turning on U.S. intelligence support doesn't solve any of the problems that Ukraine faces, because Ukraine had largely adapted to operating without U.S. intelligence. U.S. intelligence isn't the good stuff. It's not what we get when we go to war, although based upon our performance in Iran, maybe the good stuff's not good enough either. But just be careful about headlines, because these are headlines designed to create impressions. But when you dig into the details here, turning on U.S. intelligence support for Ukraine doesn't do a damn thing. Nothing. It doesn't help Ukraine do anything but die more efficiently.
Well, Scott, it's been a great program. I want everybody to know that in the video description below, they can find your website, scottritter.com, support your work. Thanks to everyone who gave a super chat here. I feel like it would take only one guy to say, hey, guys, you basically are doing the same as killing the Pope, basically what you're doing, in reference to Iran, murderer in chief. Thanks so much. That's a funny photo as well. So thanks so much to those super chats. Andrew Daniels and Farzana Deem. Thanks to everyone who moderated today's show. Always appreciate all of your work to make the chat a good place to be. Tomorrow I'll be back on, what is tomorrow? Friday. Pepe Escobar, 12 noon Eastern time, August 7th. Scott, any final words for the audience before we hit end stream here?
I'd just like to point out, I've put out a couple posts on my Substack. I published an interview with the mayor of Gorlovka. You should watch it. It gives you valuable insight. And I'm putting out things about my trip in June, continuing the Trail of Tears series of articles. And soon we'll be hopefully publishing 2 trailers, one for a drone movie that I'm making, The Gray Zone, and another trailer for a movie about Chechnya, which is called The Chechen Miracle. Basically, how Russia and Chechnya stopped fighting each other and came to peace. Explain that in more detail, because it's a good model to be used. But the reason why I bring that up is, like Danny, I'm an independent journalist, and I only get to travel when you guys decide I get to travel, meaning that if you fund it, if you provide the donations, and the donations you've provided in the past enabled me to go there in June, go to Russia in June, and carry out these interviews and these visits. I wrote an article about drone warfare. You're not going to see that anywhere else, but on my Substack. My Substack's free to go to. If you want to have a paid subscription, great, thank you. That pays my salary, allows me to put a roof over my head. But trips that I make only come through donations. And right now, I published an article on my Substack about Baltic and Arctic security. These are the next things. We're sitting here talking about Ukraine, but when the war in Ukraine ends, there will be a crisis in the Baltics, and there will be a crisis in the Arctic. And these are crises that could lead to war. And as we saw, we have nuclear war planners saying rapid use of tactical nuclear weapons. We don't want a war in the Baltics or the Arctic. It's therefore imperative that we, the people, become engaged in holding our elected officials accountable for what they do in our name. And right now, we should be telling people that there's no need to have a security crisis in the Baltics. There's no need in the Arctic, but you have to be empowered with knowledge and information. I've been given a unique opportunity to travel to Russia this fall, where I can have unique access, unprecedented access to people and places that will allow me to further, develop the issue of security when it comes to the Baltics and the Arctic. If people think this is a valuable thing and want to support this trip, please go to the scottritter.com, go to the Substack page, and on the donation side, donate. Trip can't happen. It won't happen unless I can pay for it, and I can only pay for it if you pay for it. So I thank you in advance for what you've done in the past, and I'm hopeful that people will continue to support the work. And it's not just my work; it's Danny's work and all the other people who do independent journalism out there. The work that Danny does, the work that I do, I believe is very important. We're the counter to the what they call the mainstream media. I don't call them mainstream media anymore. I call them corporate media, and I don't call us alternative media. We're the mainstream. We're the mainstream because we actually have larger viewership. We have greater impact than corporate media. But that only happens, again, because our corporation is you, the people. You're the ones who make all this happen. And I want to thank you again for allowing me to do this work.